Hello, everybody. I'm here with Eugene. Eugene went through our Business Builder program actually last year, and Eugene has made a pretty decent hunk of money, but it took you a little time to get going. I'll let you talk about that. So, when did you first sign up for Business Builder? When did you first join?
September 2023.
2023. And then when did you get your first client? Because I know you have more than one, but when did you get your first one,
First
approximately?
client was around that. It's hard to remember precisely. It's around that winter, December,
Around that
January.
winter.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So a few months. And
hmm
then it took some time. You started getting a little money from that first client, and it took some time to ramp up to the total amount that you've received so far, which we'll talk about in a minute.
hmm
Um, so briefly describe what your business is, because the really cool thing about your business, I remember telling you this, how
hmm
niched it is. You're
hmm
niched to a very excited niche that wants a certain result that has a lot of money. But
hmm
what's your niche? Go ahead.
Yeah. So one thing that immediately became clear is that my expertise is in a very cash-strapped industry. I am a classical cellist.
Ah.
So generally, it's a bad industry to be in. But your advice from the very beginning was to find a part of that niche that's not cash-strapped. If I go into this industry, so my immediate thoughts was I worked a little bit with work. I worked in a little school in Germany that helped Chinese kids prepare for entrance exams, and I knew that there was a potential there. I knew that their Chinese parents have a lot of investment that they put into their kids to get them into the best schools. I knew that American parents potentially have the same thing. So I was like, okay, I want to create some kind of product that markets to the parents, whether it's Chinese or whether it's American. I did a lot of hired a guy on Upwork to find agencies for me in China that work with these students. Got a bunch of numbers. I used GPT to create little Chinese emails for them, and I called them. It was really funny actually,
Cool.
like, calling these places in China that like who the hell would find their number and speak to them in English. It was like it was just they couldn't believe who they were talking to. And I also called. I tried to I was thinking at first maybe I can niche out to not China because that's maybe where all the business is, big industry, maybe something more niche like Malaysia, something like that. So I was calling Malaysia, I was calling Vietnam, uh, all sorts of places, but it turned out pretty evidently that China is the only place where there's actually the funds to do something like that.
Mm.
And my first client, I actually got without any advertisement, without any marketing, without any sales outreach, whatever. It was through one of my students whose mom lives in China, who connected me to some agency that deals specifically with this. So this lady reached out
So
to
your
me.
own, so in other words, your own network, which is what we talk about. Start with your own
Exactly.
network first instead of going out to the world. Perfect. Okay.
Exactly. And so it became pretty clear that I was dealing with a culture that was very different in terms of business and also the
Yeah.
language barrier. Very hard for them. There were some things that definitely didn't work. For example, it was hard to value-based price myself because they wouldn't tell me how much money I could make them. Period. But in the end, they said, okay, we get such and such amount of students, and if you get them to the professor for an online lesson, we can agree on some sort of percentage on whatever amount of time they take. Okay, so I agreed to that, and became clear it became a little bit of a black hole. I invested a lot of time into it. I found a lot of teachers. But they were having a lot of troubles on their end finding the students. So for a long time, I was iffy whether I want to continue on this niche with this client. I wasn't getting other
I remember
clients.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, whether I should completely scrap this thing and go another direction. I actually found another niche that had a very specific problem in the meantime. I don't know if you want me to go into that or not, but I
Not
did.
yet.
Not yet. Okay, so and then I part of my outreach, I also wrote emails, like I said, in Chinese language through GPT was a really great help. And I found another client. This client was a huge client. We dealt with 20,000 students. So I thought, okay, maybe this is gonna work. Turned out to be the same kind of black hole where a bunch of time investment with fine teachers, blah, blah, blah. No money, no students coming in. And then lo and behold, half a year later, after finding the first client, slowly the money started coming in. And even one even one student turned out to be extremely profitable. So, for example, my second client, which is this big corporation, uh, for example, they needed a piano professor in England. and their potential fee for this professor was between 250 and 350 pounds per hour. And I would call the professor. First of all, I still don't understand why they can't reach out to the professor themselves. But anyway, I found
Yeah.
I found the professor for them. For me, it's obviously easier because I'm in the music scene. I have it's easier for me. Just I also speak English, obviously. So I reached out to this professor and I asked him, how much you want to get paid per hour? I get you an online student, and they're like 150 pounds, 200 pounds. I'm like, great. And I called to contact this agency and I say 350. And so in the end, I
And they
would get,
said, what did they
and
say
they
to
said,
350?
yeah, they said 250 to 350, we can do it.
Yeah. So I hope
More,
if you're paying attention, I hope you realize what he did. This is called geo arbitrage. Talk about this a lot. So big profit per you per hour without spending any money per hour. So yes.
correct. Um, I don't spend any money per hour. I ask the teacher, first I find the teacher says I can teach or I cannot teach. I want to take this student or I cannot take this student. Then I ask them what their fee is. Then I say, ask those guys if they can accept that fee. Then I ask them what time can you give the lesson? They give the time, I pass it on, blah, blah, blah. And then they have the
Right.
lesson and I'm out. And then
Great.
sometimes I would get a higher commission on the lesson than the professor would get take for the lesson.
Yeah,
And
I've done that myself in the IT sector. Yeah, well, you're making more money than the actual person provided the service. Yes.
yeah,
How
and
much
it's
money have you made so far total?
so far total. The last couple of months have been kind of quite productive. But in the end, it's 5,000 around $5,200, correct? With
Right, for
the
yeah,
currency.
euros, right.
Okay.
Right, for
Yeah,
euros. Yeah, so about
yeah.
5,000 euros, correct?
I was also supplementing that with personal online lessons. So I to get ball rolling, sometimes they would ask if I want to teach, and I
Okay.
teach the cello, and I could charge
Did
a
you do
lot more
that?
money.
Did you do any of that stuff or no?
Right, so I did do that, and that was a lot more
Oh,
lucrative for me than
didn't know
teaching
that.
here where I live in Europe. So here in Europe, the fee for per hour is 50 to 100, and I was charging
Yeah.
150 to 200 online. So,
So say they got it. In Europe, how much you were charging? In Europe, you could charge
so
how much?
in Europe, if you're a very highly qualified professor, the
Hmm.
most you could ever ask per hour I've ever seen is 150 euros per hour, but most people charge under 100. And
Then in China,
but
it's 250?
in China, if you're a professor, like someplace like Bangkok or Shanghai, you can charge up to 400 bucks an hour. So a lot of these
Oh,
students, they're ready to pay a lot of money, and especially for a professor in uh in in the West, or even for myself,
yep.
I could charge a much higher rate than I could get from locally here.
Right. And this is all location dependent, yes?
Right, it's all online.
Because you live in Europe full time?
Yes,
Got it.
in
Okay. Are you
collapsing
American by
West.
birth?
I just got my I am American. I'm Russian by birth, American also citizenship. Just got my German citizenship as well.
Got it. Okay. That's right. I remember some detail about that.
Yeah.
And so right now you were mentioning earlier before we hit record that you are now looking at starting to run, are you going to run ads? You're going to start doing paid advertising now that you're making money, right?
Now that I have some money, I actually reached out to one of the clients. A person working for one of the clients is a very good editor who I worked with before to create advertising for them. And I
Mhm.
asked her to create for me a social media presence in China. And I also want to hire
Right.
somebody to reach out based on commission. That I don't want to pay them, but I want to pay them a commission if they find
Mhm.
clients for me, and to get more clients. Because right now I realize that the big bottleneck is I don't have enough clients. There's no way I can create at least like something like 10,000 bucks a month off of
Right.
just these two clients.
Correct.
So I need more clients, and so
And when you say
that's
client, you're not talking about an individual student, you're talking about an organization that represents students, correct? That's when you
so
say the word
so
client.
my heart wants to say the client should be students, and that I could probably get a
Yeah.
lot of students by marketing myself to students and
Mhm.
teaching online directly to them, make some good money. But then I'm tied per hour and by time to the.
Right.
But my brain and the business builder course is telling me, reach out to the agencies, disconnect yourself from the time investment
Yep.
per hour payment, and connect to the other teachers.
Oh my God, I love it. And you're exactly right. You want to remove yourself from the per hour stuff. The per hour stuff is fine getting started, but that's not a real business. That's just you're exchanging a one job for another type of job. So this is just music to my ears. I know you've talked to Billy a lot about this stuff. So this is because a lot of what you're saying is stuff that Billy teaches too in the programs. This is great. Um, God, this is great. So my standard question I ask whenever I do these is if someone's watching this and they're on the fence about joining Business Builder, they're not sure, what would you say to that person?
Look, if you are, I would say to that person, first of all, absolutely be sure this is the best thing you can get. Absolutely. Uh, a little bit more in detail, I would say, since I started Business Builder, your brain starts to think about business, and your social circle starts. I would talk to friends of mine who aren't part of the Business Builder who are also interested in doing some kind of business. But I would hear what their ideas, and they're falling into all of them falling into traps that the Business Builder protects me from. For example, what most people do is they have an idea and they think it's a great idea, and then they start investing into that idea. And I'm like, no, the first step is you have to call those people who you're going to sell to and ask them if they share your opinion that this is the main problem.
Right.
And so if they don't have that Business Builder, what would happen to them? They would invest a bunch of time, energy, money into this idea, and then they would bump into a moment of truth where now, does anybody want this? And you don't want to do that. You don't want to fall into that thing. You want to, like you say, put the pain first, right? You want
Right.
to. This is the really difficult part. It adds. I think it's very connected to the alpha male side of the business as well. The cold approach, cold marketing. It's hard. You have to reach out. I spent months calling. Before I found this niche, I was calling car repair shops. I was calling German universities. I found another niche with orchestras in the Netherlands. I also wanted to get
Mm.
completely out of music. So, like I said, I was calling like guide jobs and trying to. But you have to trust in the process. Like once you get two or three people, it's like amazing when finally two or three people will tell you the same problem, and that's really
Yep.
great. But it actually does happen. So you do have to trust in the process, and this is really the key. And once you get those two or three people to tell you what the problem is, then it's a very straightforward line, and you fix that problem, and you tell them, hey, now I have the fix for your problem. Here you go. And this whole process of going through, especially the niche finding, it's really hard. Not to mention, the other steps of building a website, which I haven't done. Luckily, I didn't need to do it, but the help is
Really
there.
quickly,
It's
really quick on that. So
Yeah.
you've made $5,000 so far with no website.
No website, nothing,
Okay.
nothing.
Cool.
So no marketing, no website. All I did was just send 20 or so emails. And for this specific niche, of course, I spent a lot of time researching the niche. But
Mhm.
this process is emotional, and the most important thing is, first of all, Caleb, you're a very motivational guy. When I listen to your podcast, I just tell myself there's a non-zero chance that you might be right, that we are going into a Western collapse, right? So, and I have a family. What's very important for me is that I protect, my daughter. I have a 2-year-old. So, uh, for me, as you also said, it's a must. I must create a location independent income that's not tied to my collapsing. And I look around my colleagues. I work in an orchestra, a very nice orchestra in Austria, in Vienna, but nobody has any idea about economics, about the grand scheme of politics, or where things are going. That it's probably not okay to work 7 months a year to pay off taxes, right?
Right.
So anyway, it's a non-zero chance, and I created it was very important to have this must. You must find this thing, no matter what happens. You must find it. And I had what was really helpful was you have people like Jeff and Billy. When I was there, those were the two real big help. Now there's a much bigger coaching team
Yeah.
there, which is even better. But it was just really helpful to get on the phone call once, twice, 3 times a week. Now it's even more, and just get emotional support, get help, listen to other people who have the very same issues as you do, carrying them, helping them out, giving them some motivation. It's like it's cool. So the emotional aspect is very helpful. It is a stressful thing getting through that niche finding process. You know, when you're calling people and telling you finally get to some guy who is telling you what their problem is, and you have no idea what the hell they're talking about, and you're sitting there, and you have like, there's no way I'm going to fix it, but I'm on the phone call now. I'm listening to this guy talk. Okay, and then you call somebody else and you can't reach them, and you make 20 phone calls, you get zero, nobody picks up the phone. This takes a toll emotionally. So so it's very motivational. It's very helpful to cut out the fat and get the process works. The process is the process of finding your niche, figuring out what they figuring out their problem, and then fixing that problem, and then creating the marketing and the website the way you say to do so. It's very straightforward, and I can't imagine how much time I would lose you could lose your whole lifetime following directions that lead to no income, which I guess you would know better happens the majority
Oh yeah,
of the
that's
time.
almost the norm. Yeah, that's true. This is
So
great. That's
what I would
great.
say. Do it 100%. And it's not difficult to imagine making back any of the payment you spend on Business Builder. Even me in a really stupid cash strap niche, wasting a lot of time, I was able to pay off whatever I invest in the Business Builder, and so it's free.
Well, you're a
Basically.
good example of the kind of person, you're exactly right, who is in a fun but cash-strapped niche, but you found a niche somewhere else, somewhat attached to that, that actually has money and demand. It's instead of
Right.
finding something completely different, because some people worry about that. This has been great. You've got a lot of information too. I mean, I might. Would you be willing if I brought you back for a more detailed Q&A? Would you be willing to do that? Because you got a lot of good information about these things.
I love to give back. I have nothing but positive things to say about the
Cool.
coaching staff, about the students. I love it here. So any way I can help, I'd be more than happy to.
Awesome. I may have you back. This is great. Cool. Thank you very much, Eugene. This is great. Super
Caleb,
awesome. This is
thank
great. You're a
you.
great example of this.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.